Hey everyone, Matt here, and today I'm going to tell you how to catch more stocked trout. Everyone thinks they can just go down to the lake as soon as the stocking date hits, throw whatever you got in there, catch a trout. Not that simple, and I'll tell you why. First mistake, using too heavy test line. I would always stick with either 2, 4, and definitely no more than 6-pound tests. Here's why. Most trout baits are floating baits. Your line has to be light enough that the bait will actually float to the top. If you use too heavy tests, like 6, 8, even 10, your bait's gonna stay at the bottom, trout won't see it, trout won't bite it. Another tip, use the smallest hook imaginable for trout fishing. Right here, this is what I use. I have Eagle Claw size 10 Salmon Egg Hooks. See this? You can barely see it. This is what you want. This will barely be seen by the trout. If you use an egg or a PowerBait, anything like that, the hook will be hidden, and more importantly, the hook will float to the top. It has to float. If your bait is on the bottom, trout will not see it, especially stock trout. They will not bite it. It needs to float. Another important thing to consider is how deep are the trout? Are they 12 inches off the bottom? Are they 18? And the easiest way to do that is, instead of using your normal, weight and sinker setup, just use a split shot. Start with maybe a foot a leader, put this a foot away from your hook. That way you have a foot to float off the bottom. If you're not getting any bites there, slide it down a little bit, give maybe 18 inches. It'll float higher, maybe the trout will be there, they'll see it, okay? The absolute best bait to use for stock trout is these right here. PowerBait floating mice tails. They are phenomenal. They're basically an egg mixed with a floating worm, but you can't miss, especially in rivers. I've gone to rivers where people weren't catching anything. I showed up, catch my limit in about 5 minutes. These things are absolutely money. It looks like a little tadpole in the water. You hook it on a little hook like this. Basically, you don't have to do anything fancy with it. Just put your hook through like this. Cast it out there with a split shot, let it sink. This will float off the bottom. This tail creates some awesome action that trout just cannot resist. The only issue with these is that you will catch any type of fish with. I've caught 2-pound largemouth with this. I've caught creek chub, fall fish, you name it, yellow perch. They love these. And it has that good PowerBait scent on it too, so it really attracts the fish. Another thing to consider is when you're going fishing for stock trout, if you want to catch stock trout within the first week, use your traditional, power eggs, PowerBait, floating dough, things like that. After the fish get acclimated to the water, they very rarely go for those baits. You're gonna have a hard time catching stock trout a week, 2 weeks later with dough baits and PowerBait. So switch up, maybe get a little rooster tail, Panther Martin spinner, things like that. They're gonna be more aggressive, but they're not gonna sit back and wait for the PowerBait to come. So I highly recommend using these. Using the smallest hook you can get. These are Eagle Claw size 10. Split shot, whatever size you need to get that weight out there. The more you have on there, the easier it is to cast, the farther it is to cast, and the lowest line possible. I honestly use 2-pound tests most of the time, unless I'm fishing where a lot of structure is, there's a lot of rocks, things like that. I don't want to break off my line every 2 seconds. 4 pounds, 2 or 4 pounds is ideal. Enough weight to cast it out there, and the lowest line possible to get that bait off the bottom and in the trout's eyes. Thank you and good luck.